Hi, my name is Olivia, and I'm a first-time mom with an 8-month-old baby boy, and I like to do things a little bit more natural, a little bit more on the crunchy side of things, and so we do not do screens in this house, for the most part. So we don't do screens for my child. Of course, I work on the computer, and I work using my phone, like, there's no way around it, but for the most part, to the best of our abilities, we do not do screens, and here's why. So looking at screens, especially for an extended amount of time, actually changes your brain chemistry. So it leads to gray matter atrophy, and then also it makes the thickness of the outside of your brain thinner. So it changes the actual thickness of your brain, which is wild. So if you're wondering what the heck gray matter is, there's gray matter and white matter in your brain. And so the gray matter is developed whenever you're younger. And this has to do with the processing of your brain. Screen time also takes away from other activities. So let's say solo play or his imagination, or sometimes kids need to be bored. They need to learn how to deal with being bored. There are going to be tons of times where he's going to be bored, and I want him to be able to self-entertain or ask to play a game or real game with me or human interaction or have a conversation. I am trying to avoid having my child on the iPad or on an iPhone when we're at dinner or when we're at a family function. I want him to be able to be present in those type of moments. And so that's another big reason why I am trying to keep him away from screens as much as possible. I also feel like screens stifle your creativity. So especially even for me. So whenever I'm working, I do a creative job. And so whenever I am thinking of a new idea, instead of just sitting there and thinking of a new idea, a lot of the time, 90% of the time, I just go to Pinterest and I look for inspiration, or I look for inspiration on Google or whatever. I'm not just thinking of new ideas. Sometimes, yes, it just comes to me at certain moments in the day, but a lot of the time I am using things to be creative, and I'm taking other people's idea in a sense. I know there's no new ideas, and of course it makes me more productive, and it makes life a lot easier and simple, but at the same time, I do want a kid to have that imagination, that creativity. I don't want him to have to look to something else in order to, get an idea. I want him to have his own ideas and think that he can create new ideas. There are new things that he can make and think about. I also think it's just really important for me. So since we are trying to keep screens away from him when we're playing together, I don't have my phone out. I'm not playing a game on my phone while trying to play with him or watch him. It creates more of a one-on-one time with him and I, which I think is really important and really awesome. It's a great benefit to it. And I've also learned that whenever you have a screen on or a TV on, even if it's just in the background, it reduces your parent talk with your child by 85%, which is definitely not what I want. Another thing to watch out for is these marketing plays about, babies needing to watch these certain shows or videos or whatever. There is no real research to back up any of these claims that they learn from that. There's actually research that shows that they don't learn from 0 to 12 months. They don't learn anything from a screen or a machine. They learn from real human interaction. They learn from their parents. They learn from their peers, their friends, their grandparents. That's how they learn. And so just putting them in front of the screen, although, yeah, the marketing seems great, don't let it fool you. Another reason why I don't do screens is because it is shown in research that babies only learn from shows or screens when they can fully understand it, and they can't fully understand that kind of stuff until they're 15 months to 2 years. So my baby's only 8 months, so I know he can't understand it, and although it would be a time benefit for myself if I could just sit him down with a screen, but I know that he's not benefiting from it at all, and so I'm not going to do that, especially for any of my children that are below 15 months to 2 years. Another thing to think about is that shows these days are very inappropriate, or just anything online generally can be super inappropriate. I looked, and On average, cartoons have 20 violent scenes within an hour. So unless you're going to sit down and watch every single show before they watch it, or every single movie before they watch it, or you're going to sit down and watch every single thing with them to watch and monitor, then I don't think it's worth it to let them watch things that you've never watched. For example, like I used to watch SpongeBob as a kid, and yeah, it's like not bad, but definitely in the background I saw that it said like penis in the rocks on one episode, and there's like a lot of things that I didn't pick up as a kid that I did do as an adult from that show, but there's a lot of things like that out there, and I don't want my son to be subjected to those things, especially as a tiny, tiny little baby. Studies also show that there's lower attention levels in kids who watch a lot of screen time or who have a lot of screen time. This is a higher chance of attention deficit disorders, which my husband has. And so if that is hereditary, I definitely don't want to further the problem with my son. It also creates a lack of motivation and lower levels of sleep, worse sleep, lower levels of empathy, and a lack of imagination and motivation. There's also a new study that shows that showing screens in infancy can potentially cause executive functioning issues. It includes their inability to stay focused, control impulses, behaviors, and emotions in elementary school. So realistically, how do we keep a screen-free home for our child? Again, like I said at the beginning, I work from home, so I work on the computer. I have to use my phone for work, and there are screens everywhere. There's screens when you go to your in-laws' house. There's screens when you go to a restaurant, when you are driving, and there's billboards that are screens, or the car next to you has a screen on top of it, or you're in the car and there's a screen, or there's screens on the back of your headrest. There's screens everywhere in today's time, and so it is super hard. So my suggestion would be to control what you can, and you're gonna just have to let the rest go. So if you walk into a restaurant and there's a TV, I on purpose sit my son away from the TV, turned away. Like, yes, he might see it on the way in, but I don't draw his attention to it. And then during our meal, I definitely make sure that he is pointed away from it, and if he ever sees it, like, I draw his attention elsewhere. We also no longer have a TV in the house, so we do have a TV in our bedroom that has not been turned on in months. We also have like a giant projector in our living room that has also not been turned on in months, and so that has greatly decreased his screen time because he doesn't see anything. We also don't watch shows during our dinner time like we used to. We used to always watch a show over our meal, but now we just like talk, or maybe we'll watch The Voice or something if he's asleep or whatever, or if he's playing it in another room, maybe, but we're never like sitting at dinner watching TV with him. It's always like we're interacting and having conversation and being a family, or he's asleep and those things can come out. Another thing you can do is just replace the screen time that you were having before with something else. For example, reading a book. I'm not a huge reader. I listen to a lot of books, but I am not a huge reader, and I've actually read books. And I will pull out the Bible and read it. You can go on a walk. Every time that it is nice outside, we've been taking our lunch outside. It's a little bit more fun than just sitting inside in silence. We also do listen to music, so that also breaks up our day, which is fun. If you go on some type of workout, if you do yoga, anything like that, you can also switch it up by doing it outside. All those things can be done without a screen. Another thing that helped me a lot at the beginning, especially when I was breastfeeding way more often, was my sister bought me a Sudoku book, and I have done almost every puzzle in that book. That was using my brain. I felt accomplished when I finished one of them, and it was just fun to do, and it's a fun break from looking at a screen anyways. Also, as I mentioned, you can go on a walk. If you are really dying to listen to like some show or just music or a podcast. I love listening to podcasts. So I will put on some headphones, start my podcast up, and we will go on a walk. So he's not actually seeing a screen. He's also not distracted by any type of noise, and he's still getting to learn. He's getting to get the fresh air, get some vitamin D, but he's not distracted by something that I'm doing or watching. And he's also not seeing the screen. Here are a few tips that have helped me to keep the screen-free environment. So the first thing would be to let your friends and family know what you're doing, especially like ahead of time. So if you are going to Christmas dinner or whatever, and you don't want screens around your baby, you definitely have to make that known before you go. And it also makes the conversation way easier when you're there. So when everyone's on the same page and everyone knows what you're trying to do, it's a lot easier to say, hey, remember, he is not supposed to be looking at screens. Hey, do you mind if we turn the TV off if we're not watching it, if y'all are not watching it, whatever. It can be really difficult because not everyone understands and not everyone is going to bend over backwards to help you get what you want for your child. And so a lot of times you're just going to have to like take your kid to another room and play with him, or you're going to have to go outside and get away from the screens because sometimes people just won't turn them off, which is fine. You can work around it, but I'm telling you, it definitely helps whenever they know what you're doing and why. Another tip would be to set a good example yourself. So don't be on your phone all the time. Don't, especially in front of him, especially not whenever it's like playtime or one-on-one time. Just put your phone away. My phone is always on silent, and if you are trying to use your phone and then put it away and use your phone and put it away, that will create a game for your child, and they will want your phone even more, even though they don't know what it is. And so you definitely don't want that. So just try to keep it away as much as possible. Again, I understand because I work on my phone, so sometimes I have to have it, but I try my best to do it when he's not around or in a subtle way, and never try to draw the attention to it, and definitely don't try to, I try to minimize the game that it could turn into. Another way you can reduce your screen time would be to print out recipes. So if you use recipes for dinner or if you're trying to make something new, I have started printing out all my recipes, and it's really fun actually because you can write notes on there and come back to it, and it's just, in my opinion, like a better way to make your dinner, plus also not look at a screen. Plus, whenever he is old enough to help me make food, then I won't have that issue of having to look at a screen. We have our recipes already printed out. So if you are trying to keep a screen-free household, I hope this video helps you. I hope you can use some of these tips and tricks and maybe share some of these studies that I will link below with your family if they have any questions or if they don't get it, or if you're just trying to show them what you are trying to do. And yeah, I hope this helps, and thanks for watching.